up?
Just grooving.
Welcome, everyone, to another week of Case Files.
With Kat.
And Ashley.
Yeah.
Woo.
Look at us knowing our stuff.
I know.
I have a cat that's thinking about jumping up on the table right now.
My support kitty's way over across the house. I can see him.
He's like, I know you're here to...
Yeah, but he's like, I got to get away from this story. I remember this crap.
That's funny.
He can't provide enough support.
Yeah, that was traumatic for everybody. So how was your week?
It's been pretty good. Just loving that it's not 100 degrees every day.
Yes.
That's really all. Like, I'm just so excited about it.
Hate that there's a hurricane hurtling towards Louisiana right now, but I'm loving the weather.
I know. I live for hoodie season, so like I'm just waiting.
And y'all, it's 86 degrees. But it's hoodie season.
I'm not wearing a hoodie, just to clarify. I'm just saying when it gets to be, you know what I mean? The colder it gets, I'm excited. I love our 2 weeks of winter that we get here sometimes.
I know, and this is it.
It's getting close.
This is about it. All right, so what are you drinking?
So I am drinking Made in the Shade Lemon Shandy. It's from Lucky 19 Brewing Company. The brewing company itself is out of Huntsville, Texas, but I love that the can says "Fortune favors the adventurous." But
you are adventurous drinking a lemon shandy. No,
it says when life gives you lemons, and that's it. It doesn't say what to do when it gives you lemons, but
drink a lemon shandy.
I have had another one. I always butcher this, Linnenkugels, and that's my favorite.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. This is really good. The difference is that this is way strong lemon. Like, it's almost like you are drinking lemon juice. So if that's your jam.
All ginger.
Yeah, but it was so good. It just works. You know what I'm saying? It sounds weird, but it just works.
So that's like Lemon Pledge. That's what you're saying.
Kind of.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, I've never drank Lemon Pledge straight from the bottle, but
drink
yeah.
A lemon
so
cleaner.
What you got?
Oh, same old. It's not a Shiner, actually. That would be same old, I think. I drink a lot of Shiner in this house. No, this is the Yellow Rose Smash IPA from Lone Star Brewing. Love them. One of my favorites. But, yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Alexander came over. He and Kostya came over on Friday and brought over a bunch of they went to HEB and they just started picking beers out.
Nice.
They're like, nope, never had that. Let's try that. And it was so funny just to like, there was a pumpkin spice one.
Oh, I love pumpkin spice.
Pumpkin spice. Pumpkin caliente spice. Like spicy pumpkin.
Yeah, that's different.
So it was so funny to see them try it because I was like, nope. Is it an IPA? Nope, not going to do it. But I did try one. It was a German beer. I can't even pretend to remember the name. But all I tasted was smoke. It was like eating a barbecue pit. Like it was just gulping in the smell of a campfire. It was just smoke.
Nice.
And it stayed in my nose. I took one sip, and Jason will tell you I hate things that are smoke. It wasn't
equal
flavored.
Parts?
No,
because equal parts
German.
has a campfire.
This is German.
Oh, okay.
And it was just this thick. I gave him a fancy glass to drink it out of and everything. It was it was in my nose and in my mouth for so long. It like impacted the next thing. I was like, wow, I really don't like smoke flavored things.
Yeah.
That's probably why Scotch usually is like, ugh, smoke.
Speaking of fancy glasses, I went to the Dollar Tree and I've got these.
It's
my new drinking glass of all things: water, tea, beer. Doesn't really matter. It's a wine glass, but it's a skeleton hand and it's purple and it's great and it's plastic and it was $1.25. So that's my fancy drinking glasses.
You're drinking everything out of that right now.
Yes.
During spooky season.
Yeah, but it's like they had like the wine stemless ones that have the skeleton hand around it too. Also $1.25, but I didn't get that one. Anyways, that's my fancy drinking glasses around the house.
Okay, I know we have a lot to get to.
Yeah, so I do have a pretty long story. It is the second part to what I was talking about. So if you listen to part 1 and you recognize the name Jesse McFadden, you probably know that I'm talking about the Henryetta Sleepover Massacre. It happened.
That's why. That's why I was like, I swear I know that.
So before I start talking about the second part, where I'm going to cover Holly and what actually happened, there's going to be some clips that I play, and they're very hard to listen to because it's from the victims' family members, things that they saw when they walked through the home, stuff like that. There's talk about SA, and there are death of children. So just think about that if that's triggering for you, because that's going to be a big portion of the second part of the story.
Can't wait.
But at least after today, it'll be over.
And then it'll be my turn, which I'm just going to change my story right now. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Okay, hold on.
Sorry.
I need beer. All right.
Okay, let's both sip. Cheers. I suggest you guys get liquor.
I know that. Oh,
not you, but
y'all need
people
not
listening.
Me? Not me. No
people listening. I wasn't like that wasn't a suggestion to you. Instead of beer, serve me liquor. I just meant that other people listening should probably.
If you hear me get up in the middle of our episode, that's because I'm just like, fuck this. I need a drink.
Yeah.
Not this beer. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Holly Guess was the mother to Michael and Tiffany Guess.
She was the one who was dating the guy.
Yeah. Yes.
His celly.
Originally, yes.
Yeah.
Holly was originally dating James, who was Jesse's cellmate, and then became his. I'm going to talk about all of that. So she actually had 3 children, Michael, Tiffany, and Rylee, but Michael and Tiffany were athletes. And so at their track meets, she painted this picture of being a supportive, loving parent. She shared a love of arts and crafts. She owned a boutique with her sister named Heather. Their boutique was called the Mystique Emporium. They sold metaphysical products, artful crafts, and all-natural skincare. To the outside world, Holly seemed to be like the picture-perfect mom, right? She was such a good mom. She came to their sporting events. Mind you, this is all before Jesse. But once the footage of her home came out and in the conditions that Jessie McFadden and her children were living in started to become public, it was horrifying. Like, when I start talking about the things these people saw in this house when they walked through, it's pretty bad. So I've already talked in depth about Jesse in the first part. So if you haven't listened to that, go listen to part 1, because it's important to know his background and how we got to the point that we're at. So in the footage of this home, there was a scene of drugs, drug paraphernalia, sex toys, chains, shackles in the bedrooms, locks in the kitchen. And again, I'm going to talk more in depth about some of these things. I'm just giving you an overview. So Holly's family would have you believe, especially her mother, would have you believe that she was this amazing woman and this amazing mother, and that she was just tricked by this man, that he just manipulated her, and she didn't know what kind of person he was.
But did they ever go over to the house? Okay, I'm jumping ahead. Okay.
But mind you, she was his pen pal in prison. She visited him in prison. She was well aware of who he was. It's not like, we do a lot of cases where it is possible the wife didn't know because they have a double life, they live in another state, they've changed their names, all of these things. He stayed in the same state. He didn't change his name. They were prison pen pals. He moved in with her the day he got out of prison. Like, she knew, right? Like, there's no way she didn't know in this scenario.
Did her ex-boyfriend ever
say... Her ex-husband.
Her ex-husband. Was he ever like, yo, this, you could not, like, I'm bad, but he's worse.
Her ex-husband was a really good guy. He was the one that was going to adopt the children and all of that stuff.
But he was in prison.
But no. Her husband was not in prison. She was having an affair on her husband with these men in prison.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we'll talk about that. Okay. But yeah, she was having an affair on her husband. So I'll talk about her husband, their relationship, and all of this stuff.
She liked bad boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the truth is, she willingly married this violent sexual predator who had a pending child pornography case, brought him into her home with children who were in his known preferred age bracket, all 3 of them. And then also allowed their friends to come to the house. So she knew.
Well, when you put it that way, Ashley.
I don't feel like she deserves sympathy, and I feel like people should understand why.
I don't, yes.
So here's some background. Cody Allen was the father of Holly's two oldest children, Rylee Allen, who was 17, and Michael, who was 15. Cody and Allen were not married, as Holly was often caught cheating on Cody, and he eventually parted ways. In 2008, Holly ends up meeting a man named Joe Guess and ends up marrying him. Now, this is the man that was really good to her, wanted to adopt her kids. So he had joined the military shortly after they got married, and he was shipped off. They were married for 14 years, and they were married when Holly first started contacting Jesse. So she was married to him when she started contacting these men in prison. He was the father to Holly's 14-year-old daughter, Tiffany. So everyone described Joe as a great father, really taking care of all the children as if they were all his, not just Tiffany. He had actually planned to adopt all of them up until the divorce with Holly, and he actually would have still adopted them after the divorce if she had let them, because they didn't have a father. So, but that was because he was told that Cody had abandoned them. He didn't find out that wasn't true until 2023. He had raised...
Oh, so this just happened?
The murders happened in 2023. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So he had raised them since they were babies. Essentially, they were his children, even if Cody was the father. But the matter of fact is Cody didn't actually abandon them. Holly had taken the kids and ignored all attempts from Cody to communicate. Cody did not know where she nor the kids were. So she had been kind of lying to Joe. I mean, not kind of lying. She was lying to Joe about the situation. In 2013, Holly started to be pen pals with James, that former cellmate of Jesse that we talked about. They were connected because one of Holly's friends was talking to another inmate. So she had friends who were also into being intimate and writing these men in prison. This was not like casual pen pals, if that's even a thing with inmates. They were speaking to these men and being in relationships with them. So anyways, he told James about his girlfriend's friend, which would have been Holly. James wasn't in prison for sexual crime, but it was first-degree burglary, and it was so violent that is why he was in the same cell as, or the same area as Jesse, because typically they'll put criminals with the same kind of, shit together. Anyways, so that's how he ended up with Jesse. He wasn't a sexual predator of any kind. He committed this burglary and something happened that was really violent. Anyways, it was thought that Holly, and I'm going to butcher this word, it was thought that Holly had hybristophilia, which is a mental condition where someone, mostly women, are obsessively attracted to men in prison, especially sexually. So experts say that they believe that she had this just based on the way that she would go out of her way to have these affairs. The pen pal writing, the things that she would write about, the relationships that she would get in. So James and Holly ended up dating, and they were even telling each other they loved each other. James would later talk about how he didn't know her before prison and assumed it was just a prison relationship. Like, for him, it wasn't authentic. He didn't really care about her. He just thought she was a good person, but did say she was very naive. So he knew from the beginning, and he knew all about her kids, but she didn't mention her husband. So some experts think that he intentionally targeted her for her children, because in multiple interviews or writings or whatever, when he was talking to James, he would call her naive. So anyways, if he targeted her for her children or just because he needed somewhere to go, who knows. But anyways, James would write Holly without her husband knowing. She had signed up for a P.O. box. So Joe never knew about James, and he never knew about Jesse, or if there were anyone else that she was writing. They just focused on these two because that was relevant to this case. So Holly and James had been talking for 5 years, all while married, and she would go visit him at the prison. And there's evidence of that because of the logs. She got speeding tickets near the prison. So there's plenty of evidence that shows that she was physically going and seeing these men in prison, all while married to Joe.
Ballsy.
And the prison wasn't close. So, like, she would go out of her way. You know, it wasn't, like, in the same town. So, anyways.
So her husband wasn't like, why are you getting a speeding ticket in the next state over?
It wasn't this next state over. It was, like, another. But he didn't know. He didn't know she was doing any of this. He was working all the time, you know, trying to help her children and take care of the house and take care of her. Like, he was, you know, being a good person. Like, he trusted her. He didn't think that she would be doing any of this. So, in the beginning of 2014, this is when James and Jesse had become cellmates, and James was Jesse's longest cellmate in prison. James would talk about how he was scared of Jesse. He would sleep with one eye open. And he said that all Jesse would talk about is sexual things. He said that Jesse would always try to manipulate him in really, really weird ways. He said everything they talked about led to Jesse making a sexual innuendo. He said that Jesse made such an impact on his life that when he got out of jail, James had actually called the police on Jesse the day that James got out of jail and said, you know, I was a cellmate with this man, and I think there's something wrong with him. Like, that's how afraid he was. And so, like I said, while James wasn't...
Not because he told me he did something.
He just
said something's up.
Something's wrong with him. Okay. If he gets out, he's going to do this again. Like, basically saying that there's something wrong with this man. And so, again, James isn't innocent, but he's trying to do the right thing.
Bad. He's bad, but he's not that bad.
Yeah, like, he didn't sexually assault children. Like,
right.
He robbed somebody, which I'm not condoning, but it's totally different level than what Jesse was.
Right.
And the fact that this man was also kind of violent and afraid of Jesse so much that he actually called the police upon his release. Like, shit. So sometime between October and December 2015, James receives a letter from Holly and another woman stating that Jesse had been writing them. And James stated that Jesse went through his things while James was out of the cell. So I wanted to point out, this is why it's kind of contradicting, because one part says Holly told people that she met Jesse through a friend or whatever. But the truth was Jesse had gone through James, because, you know, James had started talking to Holly because his friend introduced them. So she knew that James would be reaching out to her. But then she started getting these weird letters from Jesse out of nowhere. She didn't know who Jesse was. And so she had told her family that, you know, that she had met him through a friend. Anyway, so James receives this letter and from Holly and another woman stating that Jesse had been writing them, and James said that Jesse had went through his things. Also, when Jesse had switched cells at one point, James searched his cell up and down because he thought for sure that Jesse was going to frame him for something. And so he wanted to make sure that Jesse didn't leave anything in the cell.
Wow.
Because you remember I told you Jesse would constantly request to be switched.
And he was also really manipulative, and he maybe got bummed out by being rejected by James all the time.
So Jesse was speaking to Holly in 2015, like I mentioned. In 2016, on January 8th, this is the first time when Jesse communicated with Caitlin. So Caitlin is that 15-year-old. Uh-huh. When he started speaking with Caitlin, he tells Caitlin that him and Holly had parted ways. So he was lying. Out of all the people he talked about to her, Holly was one of the few people he spoke about a lot. So for him to say that he didn't really care about her or that it wasn't authentic, he spoke a lot about her to this 15-year-old. He spoke about how they had been dating, how they split up. Caitlin said that Jesse had implied that Holly said she didn't want to be with someone incarcerated, but they would revisit that when he was released. So in August of that same year, Holly gets a speeding ticket that puts her in the vicinity of the prison, which was, again, not near her home, implying that she was visiting someone there. They didn't say if it was Jesse or James or another prisoner. In July of 2018...
Don't you have to put that, though?
Well...
you have to say,
I don't know if they just didn't get the records at the time. They just found the speeding ticket. She claims she wasn't at the prison.
Okay.
But there's like, it's one of those situations where there's nothing else out there. Like, why would you be there if you weren't like visiting the prison? Anyways, so on March 21st, 2020, in July 2018, Holly appears on James's approved visitor list Jesse. I'm so sorry. Appears on Jesse's approved visitor list. In September, he does list his move-in address for when he's released as his mother's. However, he changes it to Holly's address in 2020. So it's already planned that when he gets released, he's just moving straight in.
Wow.
In March...
God, could you even imagine?
Straight from prison into this home with children.
With children. This woman doesn't know you. You don't know this man who is coming into your home with children.
Who's in jail for violent sexual assault against a child. And actually, I would like to say real quick, last episode when I talked about his assault on Caitlin, the full story is that they were at a party together. He offered her a ride home because she had like a little bit too much to drink, or he thought she did. She thought he was nice because her friends had been talking to him. So he drops her off, he leaves, and then that's when he walked back. You know, I told you he walked back to her home. So he had met her at this party in advance and dropped her off. And the assault on her was I left out a bunch of stuff. It was very violent. She talks about it very openly. So if you want to know more about the attack, you can look it up. I didn't want to talk about it because it was horrific. So anyways, on March 21st, 2021, Holly and Joe officially separate. She was the only one to fill out all the paperwork. She filed in Arkansas instead of Oklahoma because in Arkansas, the divorce is the same day, whereas in Oklahoma, it can take 6 months for a divorce to finalize. So she wanted it done right away because Jesse was going to be released from prison and he was going to be moving in. So she wanted things with Joe to be done. So in September...
Did he sign the papers? Or is it one-sided?
He did end up signing because he found out about all, okay, so when he was released, he did originally move in with his mom in 2020. In September of 2021, as the divorce was being finalized, Holly gets pregnant with Jesse's baby. Now, she does miscarry it in February of 2022. In this September 2021 timeframe, a lot of craziness is happening. Caitlin finds out that Jesse has a TikTok account and has been talking to girls, like young minors on it. So she reaches out to the parents of the kids that he had been interacting with and tells them he is a registered sex offender.
Holly does?
No. Caitlin. She discovers this TikTok and she goes out, she hunts down the parents of every one of those kids and alerts them to the kind of, she is so proactive at protecting other people from him as much as people will listen to her. But technically he wasn't a registered sex offender, which I'll talk more about that in a bit. She finds out he's talking to girls at the local skating rink, all while with Holly. So it's just never ending. He's always got to be with a woman, even though he's with Holly.
With a girl.
Yeah.
Not with a woman.
Well, right. So in January of 2022, Holly purchases a 9mm handgun, and everyone found this to be really out of character for her. And it was actually the one that was used to commit the crimes in a little bit. But anyways, in April, Holly gets pregnant again by Jesse with twins, but she also miscarries this time, almost as if the universe was like, what the fuck are you doing? On May 26th, Holly and Jesse officially get married. That June...
The locusts really hate this story.
I know. That June, the home compliance check that I mentioned in the last episode, the one home compliance check was done. And they never, like I said, they didn't go in the home because they said that sexual predators have rights, is what they said. So in early 2023... there was a lot that happened. If I talked about all of the shit he did and all the things they ignored, it would just go on for days. So we're going to get to 2023 now, the year that the crime happened. In early 2023, Rylee, one of Holly's daughters, had reported abuse to the school, to which there was nothing done. What? This is Holly's oldest daughter, and many people say that her report had to do with Jesse.
No shit, sure.
on January 29th,
This
2023.
story really makes me mad. It does.
Oh, it gets
does.
worse.
Oh my God.
On January 29th, 2023, there was an anonymous 911 call that was made. This is the call that I mentioned in the last episode where the female caller wanted them to know that there was a sex offender living in the home with children. Now, that contradicts what Holly's family had said in the news because they claimed they were unaware he was a sex offender. Mind you, she said that Holly was manipulated. It was actually discovered that they knew for at least a year that he was a sex offender. So at this point, Holly has been pregnant twice by this man willingly. In February, right after the 911 call, Rylee is pulled out of the school and no reason was given. Riley's friends did say she had called CPS when the school didn't do anything, and CPS did nothing. They just took a report.
Oh my God.
It was discovered.
It just like time after time, the adults in the room are failing. Everyone is failing.
It's discovered that all of the kids' windows had been like screwed shut.
When was it discovered?
After the CPS call.
Oh God.
Again, kids were not removed.
Still alive.
Nothing
They're
was
still
done.
alive.
They're still
in
alive.
this. Oh my God.
It was also around this time that Rylee got into trouble for something, and her punishment was that she had to sleep in the room with Holly and Jesse. And if you look at pictures of the room, there's literally nowhere for her to go. So she was either wedged up against the wall or she was literally forced to sleep between them in the bed, which either way is fucked up and it's not normal. So also in February, this stuff starts to happen so rapidly. So this is all in 2023 now. James, the former cellmate of Jesse and the original person that Holly had been pen pals with when he was in prison, calls the Henryetta Police Department. This is James, the man that tried to report Jesse when he got out of prison, calls the police department to see if the state has a registered sex offenders list. They finally contact him a few days later after no response and said yes, that they do. But when he goes to check it, Jesse was not on that registered sex offenders list. So he lets them know right away that Jesse is not on this list, that he is a dangerous sex offender, and he's living in a home with children. And this is like the third or fourth time in a very short amount of time that someone has expressed concern to the police department about Jesse, yet they do nothing. They didn't upload him to the list. They didn't check on the children. They basically said, thanks for letting us know. And then they did nothing. So I have to applaud James for really trying to get this man at least put on the list. Because he was really worried about what Jesse may do.
I just pulled up pictures of their house.
Oh yeah, I've got links to the videos of the walkthroughs and stuff.
Little hooks on the floorboards to
that's not even the worst
hook in the
part.
Chains with the huge dildo just sitting.
If you watch the full videos, they had hidden chains behind dressers, all kinds of stuff.
So much lube. Just Ultra Glide everywhere. Just
wait.
Wow.
Wait.
That was kids lived
there. What a great segue. On April 26th, someone purchased a chain and 2 multi-packs of locks that had 8 padlocks each. This is important because when you watch videos of the family walking through the home, and where the police after the crime happens and all that, you can see there are chain and padlocks, like you just said, in the children's room. However, the chain and padlocks that were purchased on April 26th did not match any of the ones in the home. And they don't know where those were used. They don't know if he had bodies elsewhere. They don't know if he had other victims somewhere that they just haven't found yet.
Hold on. I mean, he should have been screaming this whole time, but
as of right now, because there's an ongoing situation, they don't know where those other chains and padlocks were used.
God, this is like House of Horrors. You did a barn of horrors. Now this is the House of Horrors.
So again, some people claim that Holly just fell for his charm. She didn't think he was capable of murder, but like, you knew he was capable of violently raping children, and that was fine. Like, I don't understand. Others said she was devoted to her kids, like she had gotten this work from home job so she could be present for them. Her mother was quoted saying she was a fantastic mother. She loved her children beyond belief. She was overprotective. She was supportive. If they wanted to do something, she'd go out 100%. Okay, but then later on, her mother says that when they found out about Jesse and addressed it with Holly, she claimed that Holly brushed it off and said she knew about his criminal history, but it was all a big misunderstanding.
But it's cool.
So I don't get how allowing this man in your home around your children as being a fantastic mother or being overprotective. Like, how is that? That's like the total opposite of being overprotective. She could clearly see that there were chains and padlocks in these rooms. So their windows were boarded shut. People in the community were calling 911 on this man, and she didn't give a shit. The police didn't give a shit. I will die on this hill that Holly was just as much of a piece of shit, and that's all there is to it. So we've discussed Jesse.
I'll die on that hill with you.
Yeah. We've discussed Jesse. We've discussed Holly and their relationship. I meant to tell you, I think she did get pregnant a third time. I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I thought I read somewhere that, and I thought I made a note of it, and I didn't. And I think she was maybe pregnant. Anyways, but they were actively trying to have children together, which just blows my mind. So anyways, let me tell you what ended up happening 3 days after those items were purchased, and we'll circle back to some of this. So on Monday, May 1st, 2023, authorities arrive at a rental property that was determined to be Jesse McFadden's property. It was like a ranch, and it was found that he had murdered Holly, her children, Rylee, who was 17, Michael, who was 15, Tiffany, who was 13, and in addition to Holly's 3 children, he had murdered Tiffany's 2 best friends who had been staying for a sleepover, Ivy Webster, who was 14, and Brittany Brewer, who was 15. So Michael was a really gifted athlete. He excelled at like every sport. He was a track star. Tiffany was also a middle school track star. She had a lot of like going for her. Rylee was a talented painter and artist. Brittany, the friend, was a beauty pageant winner, and she had wanted to become a veterinarian. And then Ivy, who was the 14-year-old, she was described as very outgoing, very spirited. She also cared a great deal about animals. So what happened was the last weekend of April, Ivy and Brittany, and there were supposed to be 2 other girls, but they had declined the sleepover invitation.
Oh my God.
I know. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh.
Like, I would be so thankful, but also so guilty at this. Like, I would feel so guilty. But they declined the invitation. So the invitation was to go to the mall and then spend the night. So Jesse picked Brittany up at noon on Saturday, and Tiffany and Ivy were already there. And so the plan was to take all the girls to main event and the mall. Same kind of main event that we have around here. If you have one, it's the same thing. It's like an entertainment place with bowling and laser tag and all that. Anyways, Ivy had been Snapchatting with her mom throughout the night, and her mom's name is Ashley Webster. The next morning, though, Ivy and Brittany's parents received messages from their daughters, or who they assume was their daughters. It could have been Jesse. Were headed to Jesse's family property in McAllister, which is that ranch that I mentioned. Neither set of parents knew about Jesse's criminal history. Holly's never disclosed this to them. The state didn't make him register as a sex offender. So even if they had tried to look him up, they wouldn't have known. So on Sunday afternoon, after their daughters failed to return home as scheduled.
Oh my gosh, that just blew my mind. My kids are never sleeping over at anyone's house.
If I had children, they would never leave the house.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, even if they had tried to.
This just happened. This isn't like.
And they're still coming out with stuff.
1962, they didn't have the technology. No. This just happened.
And they were told he wasn't on that list. And they said, well, he doesn't have to be. So. Okay, so on Sunday afternoon, after their daughters failed to return home as scheduled, Ivy and Brittany's parents tried to reach them by phone with no success. So later that evening, they contacted the sheriff and reported them missing. An Amber Alert was issued.
This story stresses me out so much that I have made a hole in this piece of foam.
You may just want to stop listening.
I just have dug my nails into it.
If you just want to go in another room, I'll just text you when it's done.
Okay. I'm here.
On Monday, the girls' parents knew something was wrong because they were waiting out by the school bus, and neither Brittany, Ivy, Tiffany, Michael, or Rylee were on that bus. That morning, because this is a quote from Nathan Brewer, Brittany's father. He said, that morning I had woken up several times that night because Brittany had not responded back or come home or anything. He said, I woke up my wife and I said, wasn't Ivy with Brittany? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, Ivy's mom just reported her missing to the police. So they followed suit, and that's when they reported Brittany, because they thought maybe she had gone to Ivy. Like, they didn't know what was happening. So sometime between Saturday night and Monday, Jesse had shot all of them, including himself. The bodies were spread out around the property with each of them having gunshot wounds in their heads. Some were near a creek, while others were in wooded areas. Investigators said these were all staged, like their positions were staged. Investigators said the victims were shot between 1 and 3 times in the head. Deputies who went to the home on the morning of May 1st, found the front door ajar and recovered from the property. And this is important to hear, the only things they recovered, because when I play you the clip of what the victim's family found when they went, it's disgusting. So according to police records, this is all that they recovered from the property: a broken cell phone, 4 spent casings, live ammunition, 2 computer towers, 2 flash drives, a 9mm pistol, which was used to the killings, which, as I told you, Holly bought it randomly for no reason earlier in that year, so he used the gun that she bought, a blanket, glasses, a plastic bag, sunglasses, a flashlight, a cigarette, and a medication, and that is all they took. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation took over the case on May 6th because of complaints that evidence had been left behind in the home. The complaints came from the victims' families because after a week after the bodies were discovered, a search of the property conducted by Ivy's family and their attorneys had turned up a disturbing array of evidence: sex toys, lubricants, restraints, torture implements, books on the practice of witchcraft, drug residue. They found the victims' cell phones hidden away on shelves, electronic devices that should have all been taken into evidence. So I want to play a clip from one of the victim's aunts that tells you what she found and what the police told her. And when I heard what the police said to her, I was like, are you fucking serious? So here we go.
It's hard to believe that there was anything more that could be found. But how is it that you and your family were able to get back into that home and discover yet even more evidence?
On Friday, the landlord, as we were planning the funeral, notified us that we had 3 days to get on the property or everything was going to go in a dumpster this Monday. We stopped the funeral, and myself, Holly's godmother, and her godmother's daughter, just the 3 of us, went to the house. And we found 5 phones. We found a notebook ledger with the names. We just found other things, and that's the other family members come. The police came. Yeah. We found a lot of horrifying things, but
Can you explain, Lynn, a little bit more about the ledger? Whose handwriting was it, and what was in the ledger?
Just names and ages, like numbers. I didn't recognize, but I knew it was something important. We did turn it over to the police. The most probably disturbing evidence I found that day is I pulled the dresser out, and behind it was a towel with duct tape all around it. And I pulled it, and it was restraints, Velcro restraints, unlike the other restraints, which was laying all through the house. This one was taped to the back of the dresser. I asked the deputy that was on the scene if he wanted it. He said, this is not an active crime scene. It's solved. If you don't want it, put it in the dumpster. And I begged.
This is what the deputy told to you over the weekend. You found additional restraints that very well could have had DNA of potentially other victims on it.
I begged him, please take this. I said, please take this. It's not like the chains. They weren't laid out. They were taped behind a dresser. He said, the victims are dead. The perpetrator's dead. If you don't want them, ma'am, put them in the dumpster. I said, why would
What
I
did you end
want
up
them?
doing with them?
I put them in a garbage bag. On that day, we thought what we would do is hire a private investigator. I hid him in the house and we left. In fact, I had told by the police I had to leave or he was going to arrest me. When I asked for what, he said, we're not leaving. I was like, I have permission to be here, but we left and we returned the next day and nothing could prepare anyone for what we had to find.
Can you tell me a little bit more, Lynn, about what you found under the floorboards?
She's like really crying this whole time, so it's a little hard to understand.
The first set of clothes wasn't in the floorboards. They were wadded up in the closet. The first pair I pulled out was just some bloody shorts. But the second, and to me, the dry blood was obvious, but it was the second pair of little underwear. The fluid was, we put those in garbage bags.
You get what she was saying? Okay.
We went back to get as much evidence out before my brother and the grandmother got there. When the OSBI got there, I gave my interview and I said, no one should have to see what I see. No one had to collect what I had to. I'm not a crime scene investigator. I'm not a police officer. I should not have had to see those things. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. OSCI was amazing, but that's just, there was just a lot of stuff that in time I really want to sit down and talk to someone about. I need to be sensitive to the victims, my own family members. Some don't even know. I stepped on a hypodermic needle. I got.
Lynn, can I ask you about the nature? I know this is extraordinarily difficult, but it is so critical, this evidence, because there may be other missing children out there.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me the nature of the Polaroids, the 4-inch stack of Polaroids?
There was a lot of pictures, not just Polaroids. I found probably 4 binders. They're about this thick. I started opening them up. The first thing was Jesse McFadden's psychological evaluation. I'm just trying to be so sensitive. I don't even know if I can publicly say some of the things that it can be on TV. I don't know how to say it.
Were the pictures of children, and were they sexual in nature?
I don't want to talk about it, okay?
I understand.
I promise.
Were you able to turn those photographs over to the police?
I turned everything I found. I turned over correspondence with other inmates. I turned everything over that I could find.
Thank you for watching.
So she found all of these things. I'm sorry. She found all of these things, and the police did not, as you heard, particularly care. There's a video of the things the family saw when they were walking through. It's in the resource notes. It's really hard to listen to some of these clips. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation had issued a press release saying they were searching additional locations and property, and they were working to process these items. But I don't understand how they just left all of that behind. Sure, he was dead, but there could be other victims. And don't the victims deserve some kind of justice? I mean, I don't understand their thought process.
A 4-inch stack of Polaroids and other photos.
In another interview, an Oklahoma lawyer representing one of the families says there were 32 cell phones registered to Jesse McFadden's address. with different numbers. I'm going to play a shorter clip now than that one that kind of has two like reporters talking about these phones and kind of saying like why he had so many. It's kind of like your story where they went and they had all like, how does that not set off a red flag when there's 32 phones registered to one address? I don't know.
I can't even believe some of the things that I am reporting on, Brian. These are children, some of them toddlers, right there in full evidence. And it seems that every day we find out even more about this horrendous crime.
I'm very interested, Ashley, in the 32 cell phones you mentioned that are registered to that address. The addresses on the cell phone accounts, all 32 of them register back to that ranch address. What does that mean, especially when you bring in the fact that there are a high number of child sexual predators that live right in that area near where the ranch is? I mean, you put the pieces of the puzzle together, everything you've talked about that was found inside the house, the drugs, the pictures of young children in lewd positions, the chains that were tied up on the ground. It was clearly some kind of torture house. And then you wonder why cell phones would be registered there from 32 different people and that there's this high number of sexual predators in the area. I think we're going to find out a lot more now that they're finally investigating all of this.
32 phones registered to different people, all to his address.
Were those all the sex offenders?
I don't,
Or like
I can't
aliases.
speak to that,
Okay.
but this man does go on to say that there was a large amount of sexual offenders registered near this property where they found all of this stuff. And what he's alluding to is that they would
All go over
gather
there.
at Jesse's house of torture. Like I said, there's YouTube videos. If that's something you really want to see the walkthrough of the house, I've got to warn you, it is really hard to watch. It's really hard. And I really hate to talk about this next part. The autopsy reports confirm that the two friends, in the addition to being shot in the head, had injuries consistent with sexual assault. So both Ivy and Brittany had blunt force injuries to their private areas. Holly had a gunshot wound to her head as well as arm and leg abrasions. Abrasions were also found on the other three children. Now, none of Holly's children had signs of sexual abuse or assault, just the two friends.
I wonder, like, at what point Holly was like, "Oh shit, I might have made a mistake."
He probably shot her first so that she couldn't stop him as being the only adult. You know what I mean? I don't know what order they were murdered in. I just assume that he would probably take out the adult first because that would be the only one who could overpower him. They theorized that he chained all the children, killed them one at a time, that type of thing. Killed them at the home, moved them onto the property. That's what they mean by staged bodies, that they were not necessarily killed where the bodies were found. So Jesse was set to appear in court for the case we discussed in the last episode where he was in prison and had been caught with child pornography on his phone. His court date was May 1st, 2023. So he committed these crimes the day before he was supposed to be in court. So he knew he was going to go back to prison. Like, he knew it was coming. This never had to happen for so many reasons.
So many fucking reasons.
He never should have been allowed out of prison. He had only served a portion of his time. His court case had been delayed for 5 years. Why? CPS should have done their fucking job. The police department should have done their fucking... For God's sakes, a felon, an ex-prisoner was calling and reporting this man. Like, what are you doing? There were 911 calls. There were CPS calls. The own children tried to tell you. The school didn't do anything. So Chief Joe Prentice said he wouldn't use the term execution to describe their killings. He said that there hadn't been any recent calls of service to them, like basically saying that there hadn't been any reports about Jesse. So he was trying to basically say that there was no reason for them to have any kind of concern. You're so full of shit, man.
Oh,
Prentice said he doesn't know if McFadden planned the killings or what his motive was because there was no. Are you
fucking kidding? Yes, of course he fucking planned that shit.
So the evidence is that Jesse McFadden murdered 6 people and then killed himself. Beyond that, I don't know what his thought process was, Prentice said. I'm not going to express a theory because I follow the evidence and I don't have any evidence about what... be so fucking for real right now. You don't know what the motive was? You don't have any fucking evidence? Did you not watch the videos? I mean, he was on trial. He was going to trial for possessing child pornography on a phone while in prison for committing another violent rape, living in a home with 3 children.
This is our new logo. It'll be like Case Files with Kat and Ashley. Get so fucking real right now.
But for real, honestly.
Get so fucking real right now.
You're telling me you didn't have any inkling, like no one had called you, no one had reported anything to you. I find that to be a lie.
I mean, he just seems like a normal everyday, dad.
He's an outstanding gentleman. There is a letter that he wrote when he was in prison to the judge saying that if he was released early, he would go to sex predator classes, anger management, drug and alcohol. Like, he was going to do all of these things to become a good citizen, and he really wanted to change his ways, and he couldn't change the past, but he could change the future, and like all of this bullshit to get out. And like I said, they released him early. So
you seem like a good, upstanding fella.
Yeah. Did he do any of those things? Absolutely not.
No.
So when the news of the mass killings reached the public, the girl at the center of the 2017 accusations against Jesse, which was Caitlin, came forward with a staggering, this is so hard. She's now 23. In 2023, she was 23, so now she's 24. Crystal Strong revealed that she had received a series of text messages from Jesse on Sunday night after he had committed the rapes and the murders before killing himself, obviously. The communications were vile. They were what you would expect from someone like Jesse. His hostility jumping, just, you could see it. You could hear the tone through the messages. He chastised her, saying that she had ruined his life, steadfastly refusing to take responsibility for his actions, past or present. He blamed her for the murders. The way he saw it, if she had kept her mouth shut, he wouldn't have been facing the threat of being sent back to prison. He took no... He was the injured party. He was the victim.
You can't do the time.
When he was finished venting, he informed her that this is on you.
Oh my God. Dick.
She didn't know what he meant at the time. And then the next morning she saw what happened. So true to his final words before removing himself from the equation, he was so petty and so vile. And to put that on someone that you've already victimized, like to put that on anyone, is just so fucked up. So this is the last clip I'm gonna play. It's from Caitlin.
Prison.
I was groomed and that I was abused. I mean, I feel horrible. It makes you feel terrible, like you're not even human.
Bab says her case was set to start trial on Monday.
I was prepared and I was ready. I've been ready for 6 years.
But McFadden was a no-show, and the gruesome news broke.
It was terrible. Especially when it's something that could have been prevented and it never should have happened.
So there are very lengthy interviews with Caitlin. That Body of Crime podcast that I mentioned, where I got a lot of information from in the last episode, they have an episode just with Caitlin where she does a very full-length interview of the whole situation, where she started talking to Jesse, how he groomed her, how they got to where she did, and like just how it affected her life, and how not being able to face him in court has just...
There's no closure.
And how angry she feels that not only did he blame her for what he did, but that none of this had to happen, because had he stayed in prison, 1, 2, the court case had happened, or 3, like anyone had listened to these calls from all of these people. So, since the murders, family members of both victims have worked with representatives to write a House Bill called House Bill 3992, called Knight's Law, which would require people convicted of certain child sex crimes to serve 100% of their sentence. Justin Weber, who was the father of Ivy, was quoted saying the reason this bill was so important is because we've got to give some other children, we've got to save some other children. To make a change is what I want to do, he said. The AP, he had told the AP this during a very tearful interview. There's so many videos and interviews with these victims' families and stuff. If you would like, if you want to look them up, there's just so many. He said he was determined to tell Ivy's story and our story and get our government officials and everyone to start speaking up loud and keeping pedophiles in jail. There needs to be repercussions and someone needs to be held accountable. They let a monster out. They did this. This is on them. The proposal passed the Oklahoma House in March 2024 and moved to the Senate, but was not approved by the end of the legislative session. Because, why would we care if rapists and violent sex offenders are running free? It still hasn't been passed.
Sucks. It's right?
I don't understand why that law would not be passed. It's a great law. I feel like they should not ever actually be released, period, but whatever. The Brewers and Websters have set up a memorial outside of their home with a mailbox for friends to share memories. Justin Webster says, Ivy was robbed from all of us. She was going to do great things in this world just based off who she was. And we want to be able to keep that doorway open for people to communicate with her and be with her. Her friends to this day will come out here and sit on that bench and swing and just hang out. So Nathan Brewer said, love your family members every day before they walk out the door, whether it be to school, to work, to an event, because you never know. He said, you just never know. When Justin Webster was asked if he could have another moment with his daughter, what would he say or do? And his response was, I would hug her and I wouldn't let go. And that's the end to my very awful, awful, awful story. Like I said, in the resource show notes, there's links to that Body of Crime podcast. They have a ton of interviews that talk about the Sleepover Massacre, that talk about Jesse, that talk about Holly, interviews with Caitlin. They did a very thorough job. I list a ton of resources from other news articles that have interviews with the family. There's 3 YouTube videos that I link. 2 of them involve the family and what they see when they're walking through the home. As you saw in pictures, it was a lot.
Well, I hated that story.
I know, I'm sorry. I don't know how to protect children. I don't think I could handle being a parent because
there's so much fear that happens, you just worry about shit. You worry about stupid shit. We survived.
But it's not stupid because
we survived. We survived no helicopter, and now we're helicopter. And it's,
things are so crazy nowadays. I remember, my parents never knew where I was. My grandparents,
I know. I just made Olivia and Jason. We have our Life 360, now I can.
None of that. You know what I'm saying?
Now I can know. Will you please stop? Socks is
He's like, please be done with this.
I know. He's
maybe if I knock the microphone over, they'll stop talking.
He's trying to knock the microphone
over. He's trying to
turn off the music. I know. But I was crying.
I know. When I was listening to the Anne, I just
yeah. I bored 2 holes through that.
I'm sorry.
With my nails. Just with my nails. There's so many reasons to be afraid, and you try not to be. So you don't want to be like that parent, that crazy parent. But it's also just
it's hard not to be.
I just can't imagine not having my kid.
This was in 2023.
I know that just happened. There's plenty of stuff, and even if they had looked him up, they wouldn't have found anything. But because
technically he was in jail for the grand larceny from his grandfather. So even if they had looked him up, they wouldn't see I mean, they would have to really search, you know what I mean, to find about the Caitlyn thing and to find about the other rape that he committed.
This is on Holly's family too.
Well, her mother is very, like, in every interview she's in, she swears up and down that he just manipulated all of them, and he was so charming, and Holly just fell hook, line, and sinker. Please. No. How did you not go to that house in the time that they were married and see the chains and listen to your, I'm sure the grandkids said something. If they said something, yeah. I mean, when you walk this walkthrough, there is no denying. You can see chains, padlocks, needles,
How did
drug
the police officers?
Well, you heard them. They said that the case was closed. The suspect was dead. There was nothing else to investigate, and everything was going to be thrown away if they didn't take it. Promptly after telling her he would arrest her if she didn't leave the property. So, like, not even giving them time to take stuff off of the property.
I mean, is this going to be looked at? Is this going to be looked at by, like, the federal government? Mm-hmm. Like, is this going to be like, y'all really messed this up?
Well,
because there could be other children.
So like I said, there's still stuff coming out all the time about the different evidence pieces. The more they find out about Jesse, but as far as the children go that passed away, there are memorials for them. Like, these families continuously talk about them and keep their name alive and try to get justice for them in all the ways that they can, because they don't want people to forget about them, because they were truly great children. I mean, had so much going for them. Like, they tried to reach out for help. They did the right thing, and people just failed them time and time again. So,
like, all the adults, all of them, all of them. Okay, well, I'm changing my story. I don't know. Next week we're gonna. I don't know.
Okay, well, the next time I do a story, it'll be a disappearance or a ghost or alien or something.
I need to do aliens or something. It's coming up. It's coming up on spooky season, so maybe I'll do something scary. I don't know. Oh God, that was rough. I think it's rough because, man, like you said, you're gonna hate the story because every step along the way, the system failed them. It's like watching Worst Ex Ever.
Yeah,
that's basically like, here's how the justice system, from the police to the courts, have failed victims.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I wanted to tell the background on him and Holly, because if you just hear about the actual crime, you don't really understand how truly awful he was and how these victims were failed and how much the mother played a part in it as well. So that's why I kind of wanted to tell all of that background information to get to the actual crime, and then what the families of the victims are trying to still do to keep their names alive, to keep them in the news, to keep things happening, to really try to make changes, even if the government won't help them in that process with the laws and stuff. So,
well, guys, see something.
Sorry.
Say something.
I love you guys.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Okay, everybody, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.